Welcome to The Explainer. You know, we've all heard the term government shutdown, but it often feels like just another political headline. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and really get into what's going on behind the scenes when Washington, D.C. hits a wall. We're talking about the real story behind the paychecks, the parks, and the politics.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the human cost, the real-world impact on actual people. Then, we'll break down how a shutdown even happens in the first place. After that, we'll explore the ripple effect it has on everyone. We'll also look at a bipartisan plan that's on the table to fix this, and we'll wrap up with a pretty big question about whether that plan is really enough.
All right, to really understand why this all matters so much, you have to start with the numbers. Because behind these big, abstract figures, there's a really powerful human story.
So get this. During just one record-breaking shutdown, a staggering $14 billion in wages were withheld from federal workers. That's not just a number. That's $14 billion in rent payments, groceries, and car payments that were suddenly in jeopardy.
And how long did that particular shutdown last? 43 days. I mean, just think about that. That is over a month of uncertainty, of not knowing when or even if your next paycheck is going to arrive. It created this immense stress for families all across the country.
And that brings us to this number, 1.4 million. That's how many federal workers were directly impacted. Their lives were basically put on hold, all because of a stalemate over funding.
And this quote from Everett Kelly, who's the head of the Federal Employees Union, really puts it into perspective. He points out that for most of these folks, this isn't some abstract political game. It's a personal crisis. It's about being able to afford food and gas. So, okay, how does this even happen? How can the government of the United States just stop? Let's get into the mechanics of it and see how the whole thing grinds to a halt.
So here's the simplest way to think about it. A government shutdown is basically a funding gap. It happens when Congress, the branch of government that controls the money, fails to pass the bills that are needed to fund all the government operations and agencies. No money, no operations. And this is where you see the core conflict. You have the legislative branch, Congress, whose job it is to decide how our tax money is spent. And then you have the civil service, all the federal workers, whose job it is to spend that money to actually make the government function. The whole system is built on a simple rule. The civil service legally cannot spend a dime or get paid a dime unless Congress gives them permission. And that permission comes in the form of a budget bill. When Congress can't agree and doesn't pass one, it means there is literally no legal authority for federal agencies to spend money. So for the most part, work just has to stop. It's the law.
And that stoppage, well, it creates a massive ripple effect that goes way beyond just the paychecks of government workers. It touches almost everything.
During a shutdown, employees get split into two groups. First, you have furloughed employees. They're put on a temporary non-pay status and just sent home. Then you have accepted employees. These are the people who are required to continue working without pay because their jobs are considered absolutely critical. And this year is the official guidance on that. Being accepted doesn't necessarily mean your job is more important than someone else's. It means your work is legally allowed to continue, usually because it involves protecting life and property. Think air traffic controllers, TSA agents, people like that.
National parks are a perfect example of these ripple effects. Back in the 2013 shutdown, the parks were completely closed. The result? Almost 8 million lost visits. The economic impact on all those local communities nearby was huge. We're talking $414 million in lost spending. The approach has shifted a bit recently, where parks might stay technically accessible, but with almost no services available.
And we also have to talk about government contractors. They often get hit even harder. They aren't guaranteed any back pay, and they can face paused projects or even have to lay off their own staff. The instability is just enormous.
Okay, so this constant cycle of disruption has led some lawmakers to propose a solution. And what's interesting is it has support from both sides of the aisle. The proposal is called the Shutdown Fairness Act. And really, it's designed to do one primary thing: make sure the people doing the work, federal employees, military members, even contractors, get paid in full and on time, even if Congress can't agree on a broader budget.
One of the bill's co-sponsors, a Democrat, frames it as taking federal workers out of the political crossfire. He says they aren't political pawns and shouldn't be punished just because Washington is gridlocked.
And you can hear his Republican counterpart echoing that exact same sentiment. He emphasizes that these hardworking people shouldn't have to suffer because Congress couldn't get its own job done. So here's the crucial point.
While this bill would definitely address the immediate pain of missed paychecks, does it really solve the underlying problem that causes shutdowns in the first place?
So, on one hand, the proposed law is a direct response to the massive financial hardship that shutdowns cause. It treats a very critical, very painful symptom.
But on the other hand, it might not change the root cause at all. It doesn't fix the political gridlock in Congress that leads to these funding gaps. The shutdowns could still be used as a bargaining chip in political fights.
Which leads us with this final and I think really interesting question. If you guarantee that all the workers will be paid no matter what incentive does that leave for Congress to feel the pressure and actually work together to avoid a shutdown? Something to think about.